Well, we return for a new week with Rhyl 1879, and before we get into all of the excitement of another year of European qualifying, a transfer special, and trying to take this club to the next level to compete with the only professional side in the division, we've initially got to get through a season review and look at what was a very interesting third season. Partly from the point of view that TNS were breaking new ground for the nation, partly for the fact that the coefficient may help the country in the future. But more importantly, we're kind of getting a picture now of why Season 1 and Season 2 looked the way they did, with the performance of the other sides that came up from the north with us and the drop-off from some of the other teams in the nation. We're going to have a little look today at some of the interesting factors behind the scenes. Chief among them will be the coefficient, something we've not been able to look at this year so far because it was only fixed in a recent update. And we're also going to have a look at our squad planner, our preparation for Season 4, and discuss whether or not we take the plunge to try and get to the next level now, or whether we wait one more year for a very specific reason. Let's go and get into it, have a look at our season in a few stages, and reflect on what has been a strange Season 3 and a very good one for Welsh football overall. Yes, hello and welcome along to part 30 of this FM26 Build a Nation story, a Rhyl rebuild with me, Daniel. We are back today with Rhyl 1879 directly after our last game of the season where we left off in the last episode. But we're going to go through a few little stages throughout the last few weeks of the season here. We're going to discuss the squad planner, what we plan to do as a club for next season, and whether or not we're going to pull the trigger now or wait, and discuss improving a couple of other areas first. We're also going to talk about TNS and the remarkable impact they're having on the coefficient for Welsh football. We're going to look at that in detail, which we'd normally do but haven't been able to the first couple of years. And maybe discuss our fellow competitors that started in the JD North, because the three of us are making shockwaves in Welsh football. If you're looking forward to that, then please do put a thumbs up on it. As always, let me know what you've thought of this season. Give us your thoughts on how we should approach the summer. I've got a feeling this is going to be quite a difficult one for a couple of reasons we'll discuss later. But for now, having finished second behind the New Saints, we need to find out a few things. What we're going to do for next season in terms of our squad planner. And we need to know who makes Europe out of the rest of this top 8. So let's go and skip ahead to a couple of key important dates and then plan for Season 4. Well, a couple of notes to return to here, because the next day, yes, we've got our squad planning for next season, which we'll look at a bit later. But the main news is the board have set our initial budgets and we need to go and have a look at it because, look, it's going to determine whether we can offer a lot of our current players new contracts and sort of get them tied down for 2 or 3 years. But it's also going to give us an indicator of what we can do next year. I've got the big fear that if it rises massively, which don't forget this time last year we were in debt as a club. Now, with that Europa Conference first qualifying round win this season, getting to that second round and bringing in, 600 grand to the club. Yes, we've not kept hold of all of it, but we're in a very good position and maybe that's going to make a change. But if it does go up too much, will the demands from players become the same? We've already, as you saw in January, gone for a new record signing in Kieran Evans, who is earning nearly over £100 a week more than anyone else at the club at the time. Is that going to be the pattern moving forward, which is a semi-pro club, could be dangerous with next to no income domestically. Let's have a look at what the budgets are. Transfer budget of 200,000. Scouting budget's all over the place, but that's been acknowledged as an issue. And the wage budget has been, virtually doubled. I say that, no, 50% added on. So it's currently 4.8. We've been offered 2.2 more. I think previously we're about 500 under it. So it's definitely gone up by at least 1,500 quid a week. The transfer budget I'm not so worried about. I'd rather focus on scouting and increasing the wage bill to get a bigger and better squad, especially with that fixture congestion issue that's still apparent. If we want to go further in other competitions, you saw this year, we went in the Welsh Cup, we were out early in the League Cup and we fell away at times in the league season. To compete with TNS, we've got to build a 25-man squad that's all top quality. And we're going to need to do that with wages rather than transfer budget at this level. But a wage budget of 7 grand a week, a transfer budget of 200 grand is definitely bigger. To be honest, even though we're losing money throughout the year, it's nothing like the finances that we're gaining from Europe. And that's the difference at this level, isn't it? If we can do the same next year and just get one lucky qualifying draw, get to that second round, even though TNS are bringing in 2-3 million a season by getting to the group stage, even more at times, this is the way that we can keep up and establish ourselves as the best of the rest. And as we mentioned, if the likes of Colwyn Bay, Mould Alex, whoever it may be, can get in and take that third spot, and then we can get a fourth place in Europe next year, that could make a real difference. So TNS sort of treading the path for us all, and then we can start to gain money out of it too. But that's a pretty good budget in the circumstances. I don't remember any time in these sort of saves before having 200 grand this early on. So we'll take what we can get here. But now we want to see who's joining us in TNS in Europe next year. TNS have got a chance to make the groups again. They're flying up the coefficient. We've got the chance to get to the second qualifying round with the right draw. Is it going to be Mould Alex? Is it going to be Colwyn Bay? Connors Key could sneak in yet. I'm so intrigued because if Mould Alex make it, it's going to be really interesting. If Colwyn Bay make it, traditionally, they've always done well in these saves and become a powerhouse in Welsh football. And there's a couple of others that are resurgent towards the end of the year with new managers. So who knows what's going to happen? We'll be back in a couple of weeks to find out. Well, we return on the 2nd of May with all of the important news. And I thought this little message here was arguably the best one. New competition-wide average high attendance in the JD Premier, 381. It doesn't sound a lot, but it's an increase, and that's important. It's something that, and I know there are databases that deal with this sort of thing, but the sort of the revenue, the prize money, the attendances, they were always so low before and never really increased. And I mentioned it a bit earlier in the year. TNS almost had an unrealistically high attendance at one of their European matches. So to see that the average league attendance, and for a lot of clubs, is creeping up as well, I think it's a really good situation this early in the save, so we'll keep an eye on that. I have returned for a few of the individual awards as well because Dan Creaney has won the Golden Boot for the league, 24 goals despite joining late and then not scoring in his first 4. He's been one hell of a signing. I was scared of replacing Seb Bolton. In truth, it's worked out an absolute gem. It's actually rated slightly better than Woodcock, who got Player of the Year, so not sure how that's worked out. But more importantly, we get Manager of the Year for overachieving, finishing in second place. We'll definitely take that. I have tried to get my first coaching badge now because we've got a lot of money in the club and we're obviously in a good position with a bigger coaching team. They're refusing to give us one, so not sure what's happening on that front. But the Director of Football is pleased. We've got players in Team of the Year, Creaney and Charlie Fisher, who's just come on leaps and bounds. We'll talk a bit about development later on. And then overall, it's been a really good year. But the question is, who is joining us and TNS in Europe? And that has been a really interesting one because if we go and have a look at the JD Premier, the relegation playoff suggests that only 2 teams will be relegated this year rather than 3 because Britain Ferry have done their job. But more importantly, European places playoff. Let's go through the semi-finals first. Mould Alex beat Newtown in a battle of the sides that were promoted with us from the north last year. Cardiff Met Uni beat Colwyn Bay on penalties, and with the final 3 days later, that had an impact. Mould Alex won 1-0 against Cardiff Met Uni. Now, let me give you a little bit of perspective as to what that means. Alongside TNS, the professional side, the other 2 teams in Europe from Wales next season are the top 2 from the JD North in the first season. Us and Mould Alex went for a title race in the final day. Newtown snuck up in 3rd. You saw they finished 5th this season. And at the time, when we came up to the JD Premier, and last season, or the second season, we were doing really well, I was sort of questioning, is this too easy? Is it really unrealistic? But actually, what we're seeing is the reason the title race was so strong in the first year with Mould Alex, and the reason that Newtown and so many others were battling to come up, we've seen it since with Guilsfield as well. They're really good sides. Mould Alex, Newtown and us are all battling for Europe. Us and Mould Alex are going to be there next year. And Mould Alex, I've mentioned it several times in the regular episodes. They've become our nemesis of sorts, but they play really unique football. They've got a style that's different to everyone else. They've got some really good young players. If they could win a qualifying round, add that money that we did last season at 500-600 grand into the bank, start to improve their coefficient, they could be a really interesting side in this save and a really special one for the future of it. I do worry if they lose the manager or the strikers, but for now, not going to worry about that. They've been magnificent. Maybe not such good news across the nation though, because I think we've had our first major casualty in terms of star players moving abroad. Now, it's one that I tried to stop happening in January by signing them myself, but unfortunately, Charlie Ibram has forced his way out to Stoke City from Connors Key. Now, it's only £3.5 grand. The values are always so low up front. He only had 6 months on his contract, but it does have a sell on by the looks of it. Charlie Ibram is a brilliant young player. He's actually made a couple of championship sub appearances in England, but he was doing really well for them. He's gone to Stoke now, and I'll be intrigued to see if he gets game time or a loan out and does well in the EFL. We tried, we were nowhere near. And to be fair, he looks like he's earning 2 or 3 grand a week at Stoke, which we just can't compete with. But starting to see star players leave the nation, which is an immediate worry for us. But maybe if we can improve enough, we can get them back in the future. I don't know. But very interesting story from Wales about Europe. And I think before we go and look at us and we go and look at the squad planner for next season, we should talk about the coefficient because it's something we've not been able to see in detail in recent weeks. It's obviously been a very difficult situation with the glitch in the game, but we can now see it. So let's go and have a search at the coefficient and see what's been going on. So here we are. We've got live updates in the season now at last. It's something we question why it wasn't there to begin with. Now, if we go back and have a look at what's been happening near the bottom, us as Wales have not been very good. Ignore this club bits at the end because I've no idea what's going on. It's all over the place. But at the moment, we get 3 teams in Europe. However, next season, it looks like we're going to be in a slightly better position once the points go on. For a start, we're going to jump above Lithuania. We're going to jump above Malta. And there's a couple of others that are dropping down as well. Liechtenstein, you can see at the top, dropping down multiple positions. So that should put us back into the top 50 and mean 4 teams in European qualifying. So an extra team is going to get at least 100 grand for taking part in the first round. And that team, in addition to us, and if it's Mould Alex next year again, will be able to bring money in and improve the nation, which is so pivotal. We need that. For the season after, it might be a bit more interesting, whether or not we can stay up there. But that's going to depend on our qualifying performances and whether we can make it further. So really intrigued to see how that progresses because we're losing a good year next year. It's the season last year in real life where TNS got into the group stages for the first time. So someone's going to have to deliver again, as TNS have done this season. Now, the club coefficients are a little bit harder to work out because TNS is shown as English on here, which doesn't help. And obviously, we've been well down because we've never been in it before. But it's something that as we go along in this save, we will keep an eye on just to see if we progress slightly or not. But at the moment, very early days on that front. It's more the nation club coefficient we're focused on. And if we have a look at the race for next season, you can actually see where it stands at the moment. So Wales currently 51st, but we're moving right up this season. Our current year coefficient is up probably in the top 40. And that's going to mean we overtake a few as we move forward. So really impressed with that. TNS flying the flag. We obviously got 1 qualifying round in, but TNS are doing the big work for us. And the heavy lifting is very much appreciated at this stage. But really nice to see that there's progress and we can actually see it now. It's evidence. There are still a few issues with how some of the graphics are shown, but it's working better. And we're going to be back to 4 places next year, which is the only important thing. Now, with that out of the way, let's have a focus on our own team. And we're going to go over to the squad planner because, of course, this is a very important thing for us. I'm in the wrong section again. To see what we're planning to do next season because there are some gaps in this squad and it's about how we fill them at this point. So if we have a look at our current squad overall, we've got 1 goalkeeper left in Melvin Minter, who is not particularly great at 33 and will decline as the year goes on, but there's no reason he can't do another season if need be. Left back's becoming a bit of an issue for me. Muscat's going to move on. Calder, we're going to try and adjust the roll off, but he's not come on in leaps and bounds like we expected him to. And the same on the right-hand side, albeit Michael Stanley's still brilliant. Baldwin behind him again has not really progressed. The centre-half, again, a lot of good players, but maybe not any stunning ones. Farke and Fisher are a solid partnership, but Bissic's about all that will be left behind when Mo Ali moves on. We really need to get some balance with a right-sider too. We've then got problems in holding midfield as well because we've only really got 3 players for the 2 positions as it is, so we're going to need a 4th next year. Bronny Phillips comes back from loan, but he's out of contract. The same for Matty Senior. And Zach Brennan has got 1 year on his contract and at the moment is refusing to discuss terms or consider a new one, whereas a lot of the others were able to offer contracts to. So that's something we've got to bear in mind. Are there going to be players like Petrie last year? And that's why I'm trying to do it a bit earlier in the summer. They're going to say, actually, I'm not going to sign a new contract here. I'm going to move on. Because with Petrie leaving, we're a little shorter on the right-hand side. We've got Richards, then on the left, we've got Daly and Lafondra. But behind that, yes, Evans and O'Neill can play left. Yes, Joe Ball looks a good youngster on the right. I know a few of you don't like some of his attributes, but overall, for an inverted winger that we play, he might be all right for us for now. But he's not going to be the depth that we need. So we probably need one more in. And then up front, yes, we've got Creaney and Bolton for next year. But after that, we're probably going to have to look at improving. Because Seb Bolton, he's not going to do it long term. As much as I love him, it's one more year, I think. So there's no doubt that we've got to keep improving the squad, but I'm not really at the stage now in this save where I just want to improve the squad. I kind of see it like January where Kieran Evans was the only one to come in, but it's because he was a big upgrade on what was starting for us. We needed a backup attacking midfielder, but there's no point just getting a backup to Mikey O'Neill, who'd been very good for us. We might as well get someone who's much better, like Evans is, and then have O'Neill as the backup. And I know that's going to cause more problems in the squad. We saw it this year with Ali, with Bolton, with Muscat, who all at stages were unhappy because they weren't playing regular first team football. And they're assigned to be regular starters because when we offered them the new deals, they were absolute linchpins in the spine of our team. But that's not going to be the case now. And I feel that we're going to probably have 2 or 3 casualties a year as we try and improve our first 11. But I'm happy to have less improvements in the short term if it means that the ones we get are big, genuine upgrades, rather than just improving the squad a little bit in 5 or 6 areas. I'd rather get 2 or 3 superstars. And it does then open the door for the likes of Joe Ball, for Hamza Ahmed, who's back next year, to be on the bench, to get appearances. Bissix will be the same. And he's someone who, to be fair to him, is improving massively behind the scenes. He's getting taller, which is lovely as well. But he's almost becoming a good JD Premier centre-half. And again, for the nation, that is so, so important in the future. So I know we've got a big bit of transfer budget and wage budget, and I know a few of you will be screaming down in the comments because I never seem to spend all of it. But I just think at this stage of the save, I would much rather, let's look at it this way. We bought in 700 grand from European qualifying and all the associated stuff this season, and we finished the season 600 grand better off than we were last year. If we can do that for the next 2 seasons as well, we'll be on the cusp of 2 million in the bank and then be able to go professional, which is going to be the greatest thing in terms of improving these players quickly because we can sign better players year in, year out, but we're not going to be able to get them to their potential training twice a week, or in most cases here, once a week, because we're playing 2 games every week with the fixture congestion issue. So is it almost worthwhile making a sacrifice for the next couple of years? Well, let's be honest, TNS are miles ahead. They're professional. They've got 30 brilliant players. They're bringing in 3 or 4 million a year from Europe. They've made the group stages 3 years out of 4, if you include the first one in real life as well. Like, there's not really a point in us trying to chase them with a semi-pro team because we're not going to do much in the short term. And even if we do, if we don't do any better in Europe, we're never going to make enough to go pro. We're only going to gain 20 grand from winning a league and then a few seats that are sold in the stadium. We're not going to make a big incremental improvement. So I feel like we should focus on keeping the squad together and tight for Europe at the start of July, trying to get through a qualifying round each year, and then maybe just going for a couple of big upgrades rather than trying to change the squad around a lot for the sake of it when we're not really making massive upgrades to it. Because this squad, we have seen now, is solid enough to probably finish second most years if we add 2 or 3 bits of quality each season to replace the ones going out. So this year, we're losing Petrie, we're losing Muscat, Ali's moving on the skipper, and we're going to lose probably a backup keeper. If we can then get 4 good players in there, we're going to be second again at least. And I think while it's frustrating to see what you can chase, we've got to be realistic here. TNS are a professional side, bringing in 6 or 7 times the amount of money. Yes, we've got to be wary that Mould Alex now might be doing the same behind us and bringing in the same 500, 600 grand and maybe starting to improve their squad. I'd still fancy us to get second. And if we can get a lucky European qualifying draw, I think we stick with it. We've had 2 or 3 young players that have popped up here that have been real improvements to the squad. 1 goalkeeper, 1 holding mid, young Welsh players. But both of them want 6, 7, 800 quid a week, which is a huge output for a club that if we don't win a European qualifier, we'll only bring in 100 grand and then nothing the rest of the season. And we lost that 100 grand last year. It's the extra 600 that made us tick over nicely. So we're not going to make a profit even with the current squad if we don't get through a round of qualifying. Can we really afford to double and treble the wages? It's a delicate balancing act of gambling against, actually, do we want to harm the future and delay going professional in later years for the nation? So I'm kind of having an interesting debate with myself as I'm going along, but I think I'm inclined for the next couple of years to try and focus on smaller quantities of players that are bigger improvements, like Kieran Evans was, like Jerome Richards was last summer, for example, rather than going all out. And if it means we have to add a bit of experience like Dan Creaney to add a bit of quality, to add a good professional to the squad, then I think so be it. We're going to chase that way. Let me know if you think that's the right way or not as we go through to the first team squad. We have got to bear in mind there are a couple coming back next season because, we're not in the worst position in the world. And although we've been excited in previous years about people like Hamza Ahmed, whose potential actually isn't that big now, we have got someone like Joe Ball who's got massive potential. We're trying to get people like Matteo Spinelli to tie down as a backup keeper for next year because that would solve a problem for us in the short term. And it's just about keeping costs down in those backup areas so we can really save money to improve when we need to. But at the moment, wage demands do seem to be pretty big. Having said that, we've got a lot of people tied down for 2 years. We're going to start work now on getting people tied down that are out of contract next season. You can see Stanley, you can see Fisher. Brennan's a no-go, unfortunately. But the likes of Farkey and Kian Lafondra, Jerome Richards has got 2, thankfully. But even Noah Daly, Kieran Evans, that lot. We want to try and get them tied down. We'll make a decision on Dan Creaney a bit later, as he's going to be 35 when that contract runs out. But that's sort of my thought process behind how we improve this year. I don't think it's going to be a mad one. I don't think we're going to go big because I don't think it's attainable to catch TNS at the minute. But what I do think is one lucky qualifying round draw, keep pushing on and get ourselves to the stage where we can turn professional, we can improve the facilities, we can improve the stuff behind the scenes. And that has a bigger long-term impact as well as helping us with our goals of becoming a better side too. Now, before we go and move on to the summer transfer window and all the excitement of what's going to happen tomorrow when we're back for a European qualifier, looking at new players, etc., I feel like we've got to talk about the stories of this season because it's been a really interesting year in the nation, hasn't it? With TNS and with Mould Alex doing what they've done, and even Newtown to an extent too. It's a really interesting table. We're losing a few of the bigger boys from the league, Barlowtown and Flint Town United, both top half last season, I think, or certainly there and thereabouts. Now going down as the bottom 2. Pennybont just survived, Britain Ferry the same. But if we have a look at the top 5, and this is where it gets really interesting from the start of the save, because the JD North the first year, Mould Alex were brilliant. They were top for most of it. We only just pipped them. Now we're in Europe with them, and Newtown have pushed up to 5 as well. There is some real progress from the sides in the northern part of the Welsh League. It seems interesting for the future that even like last year, Llandudno and Guilsfield came up. They're 8th and 9th respectively. It's almost going to be a northern dominated league soon. But we've got to talk, as much as Mould Alex and Newtown have been great, about TNS. Because this season genuinely has been one of the most remarkable I've seen from an AI club in a minnow nation in the early years. Because for a start, the senior club have been absolutely magnificent. Some of the players they've brought in, A, are improving, but B, are brilliant. Some of the loan players like Chris Atherton from Chelsea, linked with the Northern Ireland senior squad at this stage. Enzo Fati from Toulouse, who ended up getting injured and not playing much. But players of real note, who have got some real history behind them. Scott Tanner on the other end of the experience scale coming in from Dundee. They're willing to push the boat out on both sides of it. Adam Brett has become a superstar goal scorer for them, looks a real talent, and is earning $2,500-3,000 a week. And it's probably my favourite thing about this save so far. We have not seen another side in the nation progress this quickly before. And that's something that really excites me. It really gets me interested because we've never had someone that could keep up previously. I know when we did the Northern Irish save, Linfield and Lahm were both able to win the Conference League during the save, but they didn't really compete domestically for the long term, and then they fell off the cliff very quickly after those successes. In FM21, when we did the Bangor save, nobody in Wales really competed for the first 10 or 15 years. TNS are putting building blocks in place. They're spending money. They're adding to the wage bill. They're putting millions into the club. I'm so intrigued to see how much they spend each year. Don't forget, after the first season, they didn't really go big on transfers. They improved the training and the youth facilities, everything behind the scenes. Could TNS almost become a club that are attractive to EFL players on a regular basis and not just the ones who are of Welsh descent? I can't wait to find out the answer to that because TNS, yes, in the transfer market have been interesting, but on the pitch, you've got to give them credit. The fixture schedule has been ridiculous. They were brilliant in qualifying to get to the Conference League group stages, to then get through it with a win in Sweden, with a draw at home to Sparta Prague. But the fact they stayed so consistent domestically, throughout all of that, they were winning twice a week in the league. They've got such a big squad of brilliant players. I almost feel like, and it's weird to say 3 years in, because we've been remarkable. We got promoted on the final day as champions and then have finished second back to back. And I don't even feel like we're one of the biggest stories of the save. We had it in that banger save, didn't we? Where Rafe Rovers from Scotland came from nowhere. They won the Europa League. They became the story of the save. And I feel like TNS and Mould Alex are both stealing that from us already here. They're making remarkable progress. The consistency while playing twice a week was just remarkable. I think, thankfully, the only time that they had 2 games in 3 days was this little spell at the start of December where they played Betis and lost 3-0, but then beat Connors Quay 2 days later. I don't know whether when this fixture issue gets fixed, which it says it's going to be in the next update ideally now, I don't know whether or not that's going to be save game compatible, but if not, it won't be so bad if most of these are 3 days apart still, because that's worked okay for TNS, and obviously those 2 extra games in February actually helped them keep match sharp. And it's just baffling to me that they didn't then move the fixtures back a bit further when there's a month off between all the others. But still, TNS have been, for me, remarkable. Them and Mould Alex, the stories of the save. And our job is to keep up and keep pace with them because, look, the finances are looking good for our club. We're in a really nice position now. We've still got a lot to spend on the player salaries. We've still got a little bit more coming into the club. TNS are making an absolute bundle from sponsorships too. And if we go and have a look at the staffing, we've got to try and make the roles count. We've been approved to have an extra coach. We've been approved to have an extra physio. And for those of you that have followed my saves for the long term will know this is the most important part. We want to build a dynasty of a coaching team, a dynasty of a recruitment team, and a great medical staff as well. Not that while we're semi-pro, that's too important. But when we turn professional, we need to have a lot of physios, a lot of sports scientists and things that can help us out. From the coaching point of view, though, the more we can get in to specialise and work with these players, the more likely we are to get them to their potential. And that is going to be absolutely pivotal over the next few seasons. We mentioned that Neil Bissix is improving massively. There are other players that are coming on as well. So Jerome Richards starting to improve. Charlie Fisher has probably been one of the most impressive in this save so far, albeit he's still not brilliant. But then there are others where you just feel they're stalling slightly and maybe not reaching their full potential. So that's something we're going to keep an eye on. But we've got a slightly more experienced team. We've got a few mentoring leads. And hopefully in time that will start to work too. But that's where we are for this season. It's a slightly different review to what I had planned because the focus is actually here on other clubs at this stage. TNS are doing wonderful things for the nation. We're not planning to have too much instability this summer. And when we've got other clubs from the north like Mould Alex and Newtown doing so well, including Mould Alex getting to Europe as well, just 1 year behind us, it really does show the strength for the future of Welsh football. And I'm just interested to see in the comments if you guys think they can keep it up. I know a few of you are doing saves in Wales. Have you seen that progress from other teams? Are you seeing more from the AI managers than before? Because it's the question I asked, and I'm really interested to see if it keeps up. If you did enjoy it, please do chuck a thumbs up on the video. Will we start to get more interest in other players now we're doing well? Now they're playing on the European stage and increasing their reputation? Who knows? We'll wait and see when the window opens in July. Can we add a few good free agents? Can we push on to the next level? And could we possibly compete with TNS? I think we'll need them to have a disastrous year to do so. If you want to stay up to date and find out the answer, then please do subscribe down below and turn that notification bell on. We are back with the first game of the season tomorrow. Our European qualifying campaign starts again. And of course, we should have some transfers to talk about then, certainly on the out front, even if not on the ins just yet. Let me know where you think we need to improve most, and we'll find out tomorrow if I do or not. And of course, most importantly, in addition to this save, our second save of the year is underway. Up in the eye above from yesterday evening, you can find the introduction to our new weekly series every Sunday night, the Youth Academy Challenge, the Albion Academy from Burton Albion. Come and have a look at that if you haven't already. The introduction to the save, the rules we're going to be following, and explaining how the format of the series is going to work. But for now, thank you very much for watching. All the links, playlists, and other FM stuff up in the eye above. And I'll see you back here tomorrow for the moment we're all waiting for, the start of another European adventure and hopefully some transfer news too.